Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Excited about the new show.
You are, or I am?
I'm excited to see it because I haven't seen what it looks like. I've just read about it.
It looks good.
And it seems like just a cool concept because at first when they were like, yeah, Moshe's getting a show, I thought it was going to be just another kind of desk daily show type show or a sketch show or something. But it's like a Phil Donahue type talk show with an audience and everything, right?
Yeah, we're trying to. That's the spiritual godfather is Phil Donahue. So I'm trying to recreate kind of daytime talk in a Comedy Central. I mean, it's like, Comedy Central. The closest they got was like Tough Crowd, right? It was like real conversation kind of, and so I'm sort of trying to like have some depth come back into conversation on Comedy Central. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So we go out into the audience and we kind of run around and let people get on camera.
Is it going to be with comedians or more just with audience regular?
So it's like an expert or two and then a comedian or two. Like we just did How the Internet is Changing Your Brain. And we had this guy, Nicholas Carr, on, the author of The Shallows, How the Internet is Making Us... Changing Our Brain. He wrote an article called "Is Google Making You Stupid?" And then Nick Kroll was on, and Baratunde Thurston. So it's sort of a mix of experts and comedians.
People, yeah, because you got to keep it funny too. I mean, it is comedy. It's hard to like talk about heavy things. It's like you got to keep it a little bit. There's got to be a place for people to laugh at it.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, so far it's been funny.
Yeah. Well, I always say laughter is the key. I do say that a lot about laughter being the key.
Laughter it changed my life. I would say it changed my life, and it is my life.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Someone said to me, "You ever gonna get married?" And I said, "I'm married to the lady comedy." We laughed. Yeah, I knew it was true.
That's really, but it's funny, but it's also really beautiful.
Thank you.
Like the first time I got on stage, let me just tell you guys, first time I got on stage doing stand up, I was home. Does that make sense
I just felt like this is where I was meant to be, and my whole life had been a lead up to this moment.
That's also actually how I feel about New York City. I don't live here, but I live in LA. But when I come here, I'm like, yeah, I fit.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
It does because I grew up in New Jersey, and the odd part was, like, as soon as I left the city to go back to New Jersey, I felt like I was leaving my home to go somewhere else.
Oh, that's so. You guys really are. You're so deep.
Well, there's a thing about New York. First of all, I want to say it never sleeps. And I've noticed that. I've been walking around, bustle, hustle, any time of day, any kind of food you want, right there on the corner.
People are so honest here, too. I go out to L.A., or as I call it, phony town.
Very
phony town.
They're so phony. They're not real.
Nobody tells the truth. Here, everybody, while avoiding eye contact, is completely honest and truthful.
I never really understood the logic of that. Like, I love New York because everybody's so real. And in L.A., they're like friendly, but it's fake. I'm like, I'm not trying to get real with your rudeness. Like, please be fake to me.
I think it's a thing that New Yorkers think now at this point. Like, when I first started, I was like, yeah, L.A., and then you go there because it's show business is a fake business that we're in. Sure. We know that. So it's such a predominant force there that you deal with a little bit of it. But I love it, man. People in New York are just fucking frightened of each other, so nobody here is honest either. So New Yorkers think they're supposed to say that because it makes you sound like a gritty New Yorker. It's nonsense.
Right.
LA's fine.
And it gives you credibility as a New Yorker. Like, we may not have as much show business, but we're real here.
We say that to overcome our discomfort at being surrounded by show business in LA. Fucking, like, I'm a real guy. Like, instead of saying I'm nervous and this fucking business is going to wash me out to sea and I'm scared I'm not going to do good, which is the real truth.
Right.
That'd be nice.
Terrified.
That'd be nice if people approached it like that with ultimate, real honesty. Not New York honesty, but real honesty.
True honesty. I'm terrified here. I'm terrified there of getting stabbed on the subway, and I'm terrified here of being exposed as a fraud and not fitting in.
But I'm more broadly terrified of just the impending conveyor belt of death. I'm just being pushed toward the cliff.
You know where I'm comfortable? On the flight, going back and forth. I feel perfectly at home right there. So you also, you guys did a UCB, I guess it was a test show.
Yeah.
And the dark web, you logged into the dark web, which I'm fascinated with. I've never seen it.
You've never been on?
Never. I have no idea how to do it, and I almost don't want to know. I just I mean, there's nothing on there that's healthy for me anyway.
Well, what's Tor?
Tor,
right?
The Tor browser. Yeah. It stands for the Onion Router.
Yeah.
Because there's so many.
For the Navy, they made that, right?
The Navy made it. Yeah, which is kind of interesting. That everything on the dark web is basically government created and government. I don't know why they gave it to the people, but they did. And so it's like
they probably didn't realize, right? They probably did it way early on. Like, who's going to have internet? Like, we could just put this out there, and then everybody now has it.
The way that it works is super interesting. Like, basically, you have an IP address when you log on, right?
Yes.
And so so that's your little digital signature. And the way that the Tor browser works is basically just like Safari, right? Like any other internet browser, but it's Tor. And instead of using your IP address, it pings to a series of volunteered servers all around the world. So there's a server in Trinidad and Tobago and a server in Saudi Arabia and blah blah blah.
They're a little slower, right? Because they roll them back.
A lot slower. Yeah. So you got to wait. You got to wait for those 9-year-olds to load up. It takes some time. But basically, once you get on there, you're so deeply encrypted that nobody can tell who's coming and who's going. And there's some very interesting stuff on there that isn't like stuff that you would want to avoid. There's definitely like Silk Road drug marketplaces, which is what we did for the test show, which was so cool.
Yeah.
It's straight up like eBay. I mean, it's like, this is pure, beautiful, uncut Bolivian flake, 5 stars. This dude is legit. But the Achilles heel of the whole thing is that you have to send it
the mailing address.
You still have to send it to your house.
Of course.
Well, that's what I was watching. I saw the documentary that the guy from Bill and Ted did on it, and it was like they had all this technology for the actual sale, and then they just FedEx it to you. And you're like, still can't FedEx drugs.
That's how they stopped whoever ran Silk Road, the first guy. Didn't they bust his second or one of his top guys?
The Dread Pirate Roberts?
They got to him through other people by I think shipping addresses. There's just no way to fix that.
And they say you're not supposed to change your name. Your instinct would be to have it sent to John Doe, but then your postal worker will look at that and that will flag him, and he will say perhaps he's buying cocaine on the dark web.
Because a regular shipment to anybody, it could be anything. FedEx, who the fuck knows what it is? But then again, if it's to a different name, they can't prove that it was meant to go to you. It could be somebody who fucked up and just put the wrong address. So there's something to be said for that, too.
Right. So the one thing that's interesting about the dark web is that there is a justifiable reason for it beyond just like for nefarious criminals to be able to, buy drugs or kill people. There's everyone that's living in a repressive regime around
China,
the world. They're just logging onto Facebook on the dark web.
Oh, wow.
So there's dark Facebook. There's it's all black people. There's the dark everything. The dark Twitter, and it's the same site. It's just through a .onion address so that people can log on, and that's how things like the the revolutions in Egypt and stuff like that they were all communicating
on the dark web.
This is interesting. We had a investigative journalist on who a lot of journalists, when they get onto the dark web, that's how they leave digital sort of packages for each other in there. If you want to, like a lot of these leaks that are happening in the current White House are probably being leaked in the dark web. And I asked him, are things worse for you now that Trump's in office? He's so anti-journalist, and he actually said, no, it was a lot worse under Obama, which I thought was really kind of fascinating.
Wow.
Obama apparently was a lot more aggressive and a lot more judicious when it came to prosecuting journalistic leaks.
But he didn't talk as much.
I guess so.
He didn't go out and tweet about it.
Trump's a big mouth.
Yeah.
And he's a fucking knee-jerk reactionary idiot, but he might just forget. He probably forgets shit, too. Yeah. Or lets it go fast. Like, he's probably a flash rage guy. Yeah, fucking shoot him! What? Oh, okay. And then next, and then that guy's forgotten. And then he's yelling at someone else for something else.
Obama would give you like a charismatic smile and then cut your head off.
Well, the difference is Obama was an attorney. I mean, he was a fucking Harvard-educated lawyer. So there's a different process of thinking. That's why he took a long time to make moves. He would think every single angle.
Whereas
he's
Donald
probably a more
Trump,
calculating guy.
He's a TV man that sold big buildings.
Yeah. He's the type of guy that walks in a room and actually throws his arms open with no irony. He makes an entrance like Fredo.
But everybody probably greets him like Fredo now. This is like a good moment for him.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, hey!
Yeah. Best walk-in ever, Fredo. Skips in. So you're what are you covering in the first episode, which airs tomorrow night? Moshe Kasher is promoting Problematic tomorrow, 10 o'clock on Comedy Central, and the Comedy Central app, of course, and ComedyCentral.com.
Tomorrow night's first episode is cultural appropriation, a difficult and steep topic, and I'm pretty excited about it.
How long is the show?
How much time is it?
Yeah.
22 minutes.
So you got 22 minutes to get to the bottom of cultural appropriation.
It's so crazy. And all these, the taping, I wish I could broadcast this in-studio taping because the conversations obviously go so much further in depth. But I think we did a pretty good job of giving it over. I mean, cultural appropriation is a difficult one because for a number of different reasons. A, it's difficult for me to wrap my brain around, it's an eye roll for me a lot of the time. And so I think what's kind of cool about topics like that really kind of automatically make me make me uncomfortable is that I have to find a way to get underneath the sedimentary layer of the eye roll and get into like what's happening for the person that I'm talking to. So I'm pretty excited.
Did anybody accuse? How come no one accuses Beyonce of cultural appropriation for the blonde hair?
Actually, beyond the blonde hair, there's a great picture of her that I don't know if it made it to broadcast, but we showed Beyonce. It was funny because we were showing all these examples of cultural appropriation, or is this or isn't it, and we would talk about them. And then when everybody's laughing at every example, and then we put up this picture of Beyonce from a Coldplay video in like Desi gear, like Indian stuff with henna tattoos and a veil, and we're like, what about this? And I'm telling you, the crowd of mostly white people went totally silent. They
of
were
course
just like,
they did.
Not the queen. Yeah. She does no wrong. She's like murdering a child. They're like, it's somehow okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the problem is usually white people. It's not black people or anything. It's usually white people complaining or feeling guilty or thinking for other people. That to me is the biggest, especially as a comic, the people that get in trouble or the people that get blogged about or scolded. It's always white people scolding white people.
White people, white on white
scoldings.
Yeah. My favorite thing is I'm from Oakland, California, is where I grew up, and there's a huge gentrification problem in Oakland now. But what's great is to see the first generation of gentrifiers come in and scold the second and third generation of gentrifiers, like, you've changed this community. I'm like, I grew up in this community. I do not recall the flaming hula hoop troupe that you represent. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Beyonce in this full.
Right, yeah. How is that not cultural appropriation? I don't give a fuck about it.
I think it is, and I think that's the challenge for people, especially for comedians. Is like it's an automatic. I don't give a fuck about that because it seems on its face and on its surface to be stupid, and so you kind of. I found through researching this stuff like what it's really about is just it's about a deeper issue, which is just in general. I mean, people taking the cream of black culture, if we're talking about black-white dynamic, and sort of making like Elvis Presley would be a great example of somebody that came in, dipped out with all of the great parts of black culture and made $1 billion on it. And so I think it's like emotional and not actually about the instance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's, I think, what we got into it. It's really not about scolding people and saying, don't do this, here are the rules. It's more about like people just expressing emotional reality for them.
So much of that stuff, though, like you have to find terms for it, like cultural appropriation, because that way you can define what this thing is. But it always ends up being that guy's an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
It just is what it is. That guy took that from me. That guy. Except when you turn it into this bigger concept of cultural appropriation, that's when you have to find Beyonce doing it, and it becomes.
Well, the problem too
right.
is if they say that the emotional, whatever you just, the emotional reality, as long as their emotional reality doesn't come to a point where someone else gets in trouble for jarring their emotional reality, that's where it gets to be a fucking problem.
I totally agree, and I also agree with what you just said. Like it's a lot of this stuff is about terminology, and a lot of these terminologies that we throw around now in this sort of post-Trump identity politics era, it's just the conversation implodes, right? The moment you talk about white privilege to somebody, it's just like the white person that you just said that to is like, fuck you, I'm not racist. The person that just said your privilege is like, fuck you, you're racist. The conversation is over.
Right.
We're not even talking anymore. Like one of the most interesting things I read about appropriation was like about what you're saying, about the terminology that the thing floats in on. And we get hung up on that terminology and the language. Like Black Lives Matter is the example that this person cited. Like Black Lives Matter is this movement that it came about to talk about police brutality. And everybody focused on the terminology. Black Lives Matter. Oh, don't all lives matter? Do blue lives matter? And obviously the conversation about police brutality was left a month ago. I mean, nobody's talking about the actual origin story of this thing. All we're talking about is the clunky boat of language that the thing floated in on. So
it was a shitty name for. They should have put Black Lives Matter 2.
Yeah,
put that word at the end. That would have been fine.
But that's exactly what the guy writing said. I wish I knew the guy's name, but he said anybody that pretends they don't know it means Black Lives Matter 2 is being disingenuous, right?
Right.
Because it's inherent in the conversation. Yeah, Black Lives Matter as well. It's not saying white lives matter less, I don't think.
But that's the white privilege thing. I think that the whole concept behind it is that if a person acknowledges their quote-unquote white privilege, number one, they're feeling like they're being forced to admit they're part of the problem when they don't feel like part of the problem. And number two, it's like they have to not acknowledge any hardships that they've had in order to acknowledge the hardships that somebody else has had.
It's this classic thing. How do you explain white privilege to a white person that grew up in a trailer park on
Right,
welfare.
right.
It's just like you were saying, Jim. Like, it's not direct. It's complicated. When you start really getting into the nitty gritty of this stuff, none of it really actually makes sense as a rule because, their privilege isn't a binary either. Privilege is all over the place.
Yeah, I just wish that people were more willing to fucking be. I just get tired. As a performer for a long time, the conservatives never tried to shut me down.
Yeah.
Never. It's never about the conservatives and the language. They're cunts, but for other reasons. They've never come and, don't say that. You're this. You're a phobe. You're an is. It's always the left that has given me issues. Always. It drives me crazy.
I think that's 100% true. I think the left has a serious issue with abandoning their own principles in the name of like whatever their idea of what justice is. They would rather sacrifice the principles of free speech, ACLU level free speech. I mean, the beautiful thing about the ACLU was it was this group of like leftist attorneys that were defending the Klan.
Yes, of
that
course.
was always like the great kind of poetics of it, the ACLU. And I think this idea of like if you disagree with me, you ought to not be able to say the thing you disagree with me about is the weakest intellectual, just flim-flam bullshit.
Yeah, Berkeley, like what the fuck? I mean, they've always been real radical, but it's like they just don't want anybody to have an opinion that isn't theirs. It's childish.
It seems like the liberal point of view from a lot of liberal people has become this thing where they feel like it's not just a point of view, it's the moral authority on things. Like the reason I feel this way is because it's the right thing, the right way to feel. And if you disagree with me, if you have a different opinion, well, then you're morally wrong.
I agree. It's like a crazy coincidence that everybody that disagrees with people isn't an idiot. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's like, it just happens to be true that if you don't agree with me, you're stupid, which is a wonderful coincidence, which will allow you to never take anybody seriously. I mean, I would push back and say I think that currently, and I think you're historically right, that the left has been the sort of thought police much more than the right. But I think now we're at such a polarized, insane place that everybody is engaging in incredible hypocrisy back and forth times infinity. Like Katie Rich gets fired from SNL, and everybody that's an acceptable form of censor.
Did she get fired? I didn't know she was fired, or she was just
censored or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting what happened specifically on SNL. The online uproar and furor trying to get her off with her head was just as I thought much of a squelching of free speech as the thing that happened the next week, which was Emilio Yiannopoulos was chased off of UC Berkeley campus for what they decided was morally incorrect. So I think everybody's engaged in this kind of hyperbolic, polarized insanity, and that's what the show is about, is like trying to find a way to have like real conversations, and it's not just a sort of polemic vehicle for leftist politics. It's also, by the way, it's on Comedy Central, so make sure it's very, very funny.
I'm sure it's not, and that's great. Like SNL's thing is they also created a culture where everything to shit on Trump which is again fine. It's a comedy show.
Katie, by the way, is the SNL writer who got suspended for doing a tweet making a joke about Barron Trump.
If you are a real person that really believes in free speech, you should have been kind of aghast at both.
It was
things.
irritating, yes. But also the Onion had to apologize for that. Whenever there's a kid involved, the thing that they said about the kid, and if an SNL writer had done it about Malia Obama or Sasha Obama, they absolutely would have had the same penalty. With 100%. They sang "To Sir with Love" to him when he left. Come on. They fucking
really was ridiculous.
They literally sang a song about a black man to him. It was embarrassing.
Sure.
What the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah.
But, I don't, I think it's all good. I don't think she should have gotten in trouble. I didn't like seeing her get in trouble for that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking free speech, it sort of has to go both ways. So
I don't give a fuck about Barron Trump any more than I care about the Obama's kids. To me, the family should be the first thing we make fun of, because everyone's always dragging their dumb families around like, look what a great family man I am. All right, good. Well, let me fucking take them apart a little bit. Make fun of them.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be sacred cows.
You made them public figures, right?
Yeah, you're the one putting them up there with you. I normally wouldn't care. Fuck, I still do Amy Carter jokes. They kill.
This peanut eating bitch.
So do you have to do a shit ton of research before every show?
Yeah, man, it's totally insane. And what's crazy about like the process of this thing is like I read for a week hundreds of pages about this topic, and then on Friday, we tape on Thursdays, it's just like I dump all that information into the trash bin and I move to the next thing. So like all I was thinking for a full week was cultural appropriation, then I dumped that in the trash bin, and then it was how the internet is changing our brain, which was so fascinating and so crazy. Like the way in which the internet is affecting our attention span and our ability to think is like, it really is chilling, man. It's really intense.
So how much do you end up retaining? Like, do you after a couple weeks be like, oh, you know what? I still have retained some of that cultural appropriation knowledge, or I still kind of know why the internet is changing our brains.
There's some little nuggets from each thing so far that I have retained. Right now I've already moved on from internet into we're doing Islam as the next episode. And we're
So you're gonna clear up Islam in 22
yeah,
minutes?
we're gonna figure that out. We're figuring it out. We're having Baron Trump is coming on, Katie Rich, and we're gonna have a round table to figure out what to do about Islam. That'll be a cool one, I think, because I think we're going to like a conservative part of LA. We're going to like Orange County to like let people ask questions anonymously of a panel of. They're not going to have to, because obviously what happens when you have people in front of each other is everybody becomes incredibly polite, and we're trying to figure out what happens when people stop being polite and start getting real.
Oh, that's such a good idea for a show.
Yeah, it's like, and we're just in an apartment in New York City, which again, really vibrant city. And it's just
real.
a bunch of young people getting real, just
so
really getting
cool.
real.
Yeah.
But no, I think that'll be cool because people. In fact, we're going to give them like if they want to fully anonymize, we'll give them like little masks or maybe even like a hood or something like that.
Well, a hood might not be the right message.
No, I know.
I enjoyed. I feel like you might have gotten beat to the punch though, because on yesterday I think on Fox and Friends. They were talking about Islam.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
One of the guys
did they clear it up?
Well, yeah, they did. One of the guys brought up a great point because they were talking about Homeland. And one of the guys said, if Islam wants to not be taken so negatively, they should stop lighting people on fire and blowing up bombs. Which is like...
Honestly, it's hard. It's an unassailable kind of logic. That is true. Yeah.
That's a fair point.
Right.
I say no seriousness.
Okay, I've never really heard it broken down that easily, but maybe you don't need 22 minutes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. You thought I didn't have enough time. Turns out I have far too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes the simplest answer is the answer that we're looking for. The simplest. How's Natasha?
She's good. Yeah, really good. She's filming Dice right now.
Oh, the season 2, right?
Season 2 of Dice.
She was hilarious in that show.
It was a
so
really good show.
It's so funny, man.
Yeah, he's such a character, and they're like, I get these great updates from set. It's really fun. He said to her, she was like, "That was great, Dice." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm good with B's, D's, and G's." Those consonants are really the ones that he can stick.
And he's a good actor, though.
He's good.
He's really funny, man.
In Vinyl, that was like shockingly good.
Yeah.
He's great, but she's good. Yeah, they just wrapped season 3 of Another Period, and she rolled right into Dice.
Okay, Another Period is on what?
On Comedy Central as well. Yeah.
And now you also did that podcast with Neil Brennan, which I thought was such an interesting concept, where you guys just interviewed black people.
Oh, you mean Cultural Appropriation, the podcast?
What was it called?
The Champs.
Why'd you guys stop doing it? It was doing well.
Ran out of black people.
It was we got to the end. It was cool, man. We got to James Earl Jones, and we were just like, we're out. We have to go to Africa to keep going. We stopped because Neil and I both have busy touring schedules, and it was just difficult to get to. But on a real level, it was difficult. Anytime you put strictures on your guests, who can be your guest, you get into like the difficulty of ever booking a show. That is the hardest thing. So
plus, imagine doing a podcast you knew was never going to start on time. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Oh, you think that's a joke?
No,
but it isn't.
Who was the latest guest?
Oh, well, Daz Dillinger, the rapper.
I don't know.
He was the latest guest in that he was on his way, and then we never heard from him again. It's like, Daz will be there in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And we're just like,
just never showed up.
And then just emailed.
So he still might show up at some point.
No, he might be there.
He might
but
still be on his way.
We've wrapped.
Did you ever get a reason?
No. We stopped hearing from his manager after.
I wonder why. It must have been something they looked up, or he just didn't want to do it.
I mean, I have no idea.
He probably just got distracted or just didn't want to do it.
I mean, Questlove. Our last episode was Questlove, and he was a fan of the show, and he came in a bunch of times. And we taped in a full. It was our final goodbye episode.
Sure.
And it was about an hour. He was about an hour and a half late.
For the goodbye episode.
For the goodbye.
You could just like.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect poetic.
I guess that is poetic.
So who actually mentioned ending it? Like, did you guys both just sit down and go, "This is fun, but I'm too busy," or did you notice it was too hard to get together?
I mean, that was basically it. It was becoming more and more difficult to book the thing, and both of us were getting busier and busier. So I wish it was still going, especially in this weird era we're living in now. It would be a nice time to have that show. But I will tell you. That I don't think that the show is as necessary now as it was. I don't know if it was ever necessary. I mean, look, all podcasts are necessary and all podcasts matter. But
absolutely too. All podcasts matter too.
as well.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
all,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All white podcasts matter.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Good boy. That's what I meant. We winked. You can't see it on the radio. We understood each other.
But when we started the show, I mean, basically the premise of the show is me and Neil, two white guys, interviewing black celebrities. And when we started, it was like the white podcasting world was so unbelievably white, and so we thought, oh, here's this whole area of people that haven't been interviewed, and so a lot of the interviews, it was people's first podcast. A lot of people were like, I don't even know what a podcast is.
Right.
We would have people going like, oh, they thought it was like morning radio. Like, okay, well, he could call in from 10 to 10:15 tomorrow. It's like that's not really what's happening.
That's not how it works, right?
Anyway, I would say. I don't know, like 20 people from that show have their own podcast now that they've started their own shows. And I just feel like there's less need for our show.
It's being done by a lot of people. Yeah, understandable.
By the guests themselves. I mean, they don't, finally, basically what I'm saying is a couple of white guys came in and we saved black podcasts.
You were like, like the NBA. A white guy started it and let it, yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
we're like Dances with Wolves. We came in.
You educated the community to what they could be doing.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with the movie Avatar, but it's loosely based on Neil Brennan and my podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, we came in, we sort of saved the Na'vi, and then we let them have podcasting for themselves.
I knew the story was familiar.
Yeah.
Now I'm connecting the dots.
Who was your first guest on that?
The first guest was actually, I think it was Gerard Carmichael.
Oh, okay.
But this was a pre-Carmichael show. I think that's right. I think that he was the first guest. That was, and Ian Edwards, I think maybe, both of them together.
Ian was good in that movie, The Orange.
Tangerine?
Tangerine, yeah.
Yeah.
I got the fruit wrong, ironically, about the trans women in L.A. It was shot on iPhones or something.
I just drove by that donut shop. That donut shop was very famous for being
Is
a
that
place.
on Santa Monica?
Yes.
Yes, God knows I've been around that block many times. Yeah, I know exactly where it is. You know the corner the donut shop's on.
That's why you're pretending you didn't know the name of the movie. It's Orange or something like that. I'm not really sure to be honest.
Banana, yeah.
I can't, but
he was good in that. He
was
played
great.
the
the donut shop guy,
the donut shop owner or employee or whatever. He was friends with James Ransone, who was the pimp.
The movie was straight up good. Oh, the White Pimp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a weird film.
It was weird.
But it was
good, though. It was fun.
And you've gotten shit too, man. Like, you're a liberal guy, but you've caught shit from the left too from jokes you've done. Because you're not,
absolutely.
Like, that's why I like Bill Maher. Because he's a guy who's very liberal, but he's also not a language cop. Like, he'll make fun of things, and that's all you ask. I don't give a fuck what a guy's politics are. So I like the fact that you do that.
Well, I'm a comic. First and foremost, I'm more of a comic than I am a political progressive.
Does that because you say that, like, well, obviously, but I feel like, especially since Trump has come on board, there's more and more comedians that have decided they don't need to put their message out with jokes. They just are getting out there and just being political. It's like what Jim, when he brought up SNL, singing Obama out of office, and you're just sitting there waiting for a punchline, and you're like, wait,
what are you doing?
There's no, this isn't.
Yeah, I like the guy too, but he's a political figure.
I call it having a PhD in gut feelings. That's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like, I get the general impression that this is the truth. I had a guest on my podcast. I do another podcast now called the Hound Tall Discussion Series, which is sort of loosely what the Comedy Central show came from, where we have an expert on and like three comics riff over it. So it's kind of like a TED Talk meets Mystery Science Theater or whatever. And we had somebody on who wrote the book on peaceful protest, why peaceful protest is more effective than violent protest, and why the if you want to make substantial change, you should be peaceful. Okay, he wrote the book on it, and I swear to God, some of the comics that I had on were like, fielding questions that were clearly you know what I mean? Like the person was like, yes, how do you organize within a community that isn't interested in being organized? And the person, I've been on Conan, I can speak to that. Okay,
but they weren't kidding?
Oh, no. I mean, I was watching a stand-up clip the other day, and I counted 5 applause breaks between an area where they're not only, because comedy's subjective, it's not that it wasn't funny, it was that it wasn't comedy. It was like
it wasn't a joke.
There was no area where one would go, oh, here is a laughter point, but I don't find that funny. It was 5 applause breaks between area where one could laugh.
Well,
so,
sorry.
No, please.
So what Carlin was so great, because the applause breaks you're talking about, in his specials, sometimes the crowd would go, okay, and just get to the next. Like, he didn't want to stop until the bit was over.
Right.
But like, he would hate that when they would clap in the middle of, and Colin always talks about it, because we're not doing it for applause. Late night TV has taught you that applause. Wow! All right, well, that was it not funny?
You've heard of the phrase clapter? Have you?
I have not.
Yeah.
So that's exactly.
But I'm
what
going to appropriate it and use it a lot in this morning show.
I
and
think you
annoy
can
everybody.
have it. I believe a white person invented it, so it's all
Clapter.
yours.
Sounds like a combination of laughing and clapping.
No way,
Come
Jim.
on.
You don't get it.
It's a
It's a
different thing.
combination of laughing and clapping. No, it's neat. It's actually not. It's just. When a comedian, it's just what you're talking about. When a
Right.
comedian gets up and makes like a point, like, I believe that racism is bad.
I would fucking boo that point, by the way. Terrible example.
That's booter.
Absolutely.
That's a Japanese
Yeah.
dance form. Booter.
But like, it's just like, I mean, it's kind of the same as like what people do on social media now, where the positive reaction just feels so good, and it's easier to get applause than to get laughs.
Well, that's the thing is like if you're a comedian, your job is only one thing, and it's to make people laugh. I've always felt like no matter what, I've always felt. Here's what I feel about comedy, if you're interested. But I mean, it's just like it doesn't matter. I've never been a guy that's like, oh, don't do props or oh, don't do that,
Yeah.
don't do a guitar. It's all just like, are you making people laugh or are you not? Obviously, we've all seen hacky people make people laugh, but it's like I don't understand why you would think that you had the rhetorical authority to be a political pundit that doesn't get laughs when all you've done is like work at clubs for 10 years. Like there's
Right.
no give me a degree in political science if that's really what you're doing. I'm not a
And
particularly
even those guys are fucking dopes. Half of them, and even the ones that like their whole life is built on picking something, and they're wrong half the time.
Yeah. Mhm.
They're fucking wrong. It's like you got to try to be funny. At least, even if you're wrong, just try to be funny. Like a lot of the comics on Twitter, it's like I get it. We all have strong feelings, but once in a while, pardon the interruption, could you attempt a joke, even if it's not a great joke? Attempt it.
I do think people are melting down.
Oh,
And I think
it's
that's
embarrassing.
I think like I give people. I was melting down for a while, and I think like then you get back to like you're on your feet, kind of. And yeah, the job of the comedian is to be funny. That's it.
Yeah, that's how you get it out. We've all been self-righteous asses. I mean, of course I've done it. Everyone does it sometimes. But then you're like, if you're on Twitter every day, or you're on social media, whatever it is, and never trying to make jokes, only trying to be serious, people are going to go, wow, what a brilliant, virtuous person. Shut up.
Did you melt down for a while?
Oh, I melted down.
You did.
You should, but you guys should have seen my election party. It was, if you wanted to paint a portrait of out of touch Hollywood elite like nightmare,
that's awesome.
it would have been that we had a pool party.
Because you were so sure.
Oh, just
it's
like
a good news
That's
night.
awesome. And then all of a sudden somebody brought a toaster out and everyone jumped in the pool.
I mean, you couldn't have painted a more out of touch situation. We heated the pool up to like 90 degrees, like 90. It was so hot, like just
Right.
shoveling coal into the
that's
incinerator.
everybody that cares about the environment, right?
We hired, we got Mexican catering
Of
because we
course.
thought it would be funny.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we
Of
thought that would be a
course.
nice
Yeah.
ironic twist to
Yeah.
the evening.
Right.
And we're literally, I mean, it's just a bunch of like Hollywood liberals on floaties in the pool. With a big screen TV that we'd rented as the
Oh
election
my
result.
God, how
I mean,
great.
if you wanted to write like a one-act play about like the out of touch nature of the American left, it would have just been a webcam in my backyard. So that yeah.
When did like
Yes.
when did the vibe start
Change.
to change in the
It
party?
was so funny to have a vibe that toxic with everybody swimming.
What was it? Because I was watching it. We're all watching it and going like, is this really going to happen?
Right, I
Whether you
thought-
loved it or hated it.
I didn't vote for Hillary, but I thought Hillary was going to win. And
Everyone did.
right, and so you're watching it, and I think everybody had this reaction where it's like, well, those are the early states. Like
Yeah,
those are always
yeah.
going to go red.
Oh,
like,
it's straight mental gymnastics that continued until there would always be like one guy at the party. Like, the pool would go like, it would be everybody. I mean, not the pool, not the literal pool, but
Yeah.
the intellectual pool would be like everybody like, no, we're good. And then it would get smaller and smaller until it was just one guy in the back like Googling stuff. Like, I think we still got a path.
I literally heard people that were saying, well, the reason that the early votes for Trump came in is because a lot of those people are uneducated, don't have jobs. All the educated working people, those votes come in later, and that's how
Right.
we'll
It was
win
amazing the fucking arrogance of people. Like
I agree.
the moral high ground, like Sam said, I know what it is. You bunch
Yeah.
of dopes. You don't quite get it. I'll think for you. And they fucking I'm not saying all Hillary voters were arrogant. Some people just don't like Trump. They like Hillary.
Did you guys keep swimming?
No, we did eventually get out of the pool, dry off, and reckon with the
no.
new era that we were living in.
Did that party end sadly?
It didn't end sadly. It petered. I mean, it was just so. It was so funny. I mean, in retrospect, how hilariously out of touch we are. I mean, literally the thing Trump was talking about the whole time, this like out of the elite.
Yeah.
It was just like, we are them?
Oh,
cool,
no.
cool.
Yeah.
Can you turn the pool up to 180 so I can boil myself
But
alive?
has there been any like in that group? Again, I don't count you as a stand-up. It's a little bit different because we have an ability at least to shit on ourselves for our own bullshit, which we all do. But do you think there's been any switch where people are like, maybe we were a little bit like that, and maybe it wasn't just a bunch of Klansmen voting for this guy?
Oh, I think anybody on the American left who isn't reckoning with the fact that not only did the Democratic Party do itself an incredible disservice, but also that just in general we've been completely out of touch, focused on. I think that's a non-introspective person. I think that the general conversation that I hear in the American left is that we forgot that we were also beyond being champions of diversity and identity politics. We were also theoretically supposed to be champions of anti-big banking, pro-worker, pro-union, working class people, and they left that behind because of what you're saying.
Yeah.
The moral high ground isn't enough to win everything. Thinking that you're right about every moral conversation isn't enough because people aren't interested in talking about morality. They want to talk about their job.
They
Real
let
life.
a billionaire. They let a billionaire convince workers that he cared more about
He's
them.
one of us.
A billionaire.
Yeah.
And you can't blame
By the-
Trump for that.
No.
You have to blame the working people's party who left that behind a long time ago. Because why? Because they were courting like celebrities. I mean, straight up, like
Yeah.
They
Thinking
had
that like
Ka-
Ben Affleck going out there and
Yeah.
really
That
saying,
guy's
"Here's-"
good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't
That
have-
guy's good.
I know you're a
Don't
fan.
mention Ben Affleck.
I
I've
know
seen
you're
him
a
talk
fan.
about his law. He knows. That guy knows.
Yeah.
He's
That's
smart.
that's where Bill Maher was out of line
Absolutely.
arguing with Ben Affleck.
Don't
Yeah.
fuck with Ben Affleck. That guy's good.
I mean, but I literally heard that at the Javits Center, the plan was for Katy Perry, I don't know if this is true, for Katy Perry to literally shatter a glass ceiling with a hammer on election night. And if that's not a like polemic for everything that went wrong, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's where the rubber left the road in terms of reality of the American left. Just like, oh yeah, Katy Perry will just stomp on glass.
Katy Perry.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yuck.
Katy Perry is the perfect representation because she has not gotten as far as she could have had she been a man. I mean,
But it's like it is like incredible how out of touch and out to lunch the American left has been. If anything, I think this could be. My brother said, I was talking to my brother about the election. He was like, if this is what's happening, it means that it is what needed to happen. Something in this country needed to get shaken up. Hopefully, it won't be too terrible before we figure out where we're going. But if we needed to get through this, this is what needed to happen.
yeah. Well, so far it's nothing hugely bad has happened. We just have North Korea threatening to nuke us because of the president's tweets.
Their bomb worked like my dick normally does. It's good for 30 seconds and finished.
But it was a nice show of force, though.
Oh,
Jim.
it sure was. A whole big talk up and then fucking radio silence after you're humiliated. That's what Kim Jong-un is doing right now, just kind of wiping himself off and shuffling off to the bathroom.
Yeah.
It was humiliating.
He said this doesn't normally happen to me.
Yeah, well, the Korean dictator is mumbling, I must be tired.
Actually, in a weird way, it's you. It's your fault in a weird way.
That's embarrassing for them. And Trump is smart on this one. He kept his mouth shut. They said he
that's
just said the
interesting.
president
Right.
has no comment, which could have been, well, he didn't want to give him the attention, but I think that somebody told him there's a reason that these weapons are not going to work properly. It was like, what are they doing in
Well, the
Iran?
vice president went down there.
Well, he's in South Korea, he's in Seoul.
Right. He's
But-
going to the border town.
to TMZ, yeah.
Yeah.
TMZ, is it the
DMZ.
DMZ, sorry.
He
Yeah.
went to TMZ.
Yeah, TMZ.
Yeah.
Harvey, let me tell you what's happening over there.
Hey, by the way, there would be weirder things that if TMZ got a foreign policy wing.
Oh yeah, I would
Plus,
believe it.
Kim Jong-un, look, everybody says, oh, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. He won't even fucking run over that DMZ. So he's not that crazy.
Right.
If he was that crazy, he would just mow down. Well, we have 14,000 troops there.
Can I ask, does anybody know why we're actually concerned with North Korea?
Because we're fucking dope. Because he does have a nuclear weapon and he's a little unhinged.
They got
He's
nukes.
unhinged. He's
And I
crazy.
think that they're afraid that he would nuke South Korea and cause a real problem. And it's also our way to fucking kick China in the dick a little bit, the same way fucking, complaining about, Vietnam was a way to kick Russia. You know what I mean? It's like we just kind of use these smaller countries to beat each other up a little bit.
Right. It sort of seems like we refuse ever to learn any foreign policy lesson. We're just like, maybe if we go into another Middle Eastern country, we'll be able to figure out that we'll stabilize that region. It's like that has never worked.
No. This guy's good though. I love Kim Jong Un.
You gotta love him.
He's fucking fun. Big basketball fan.
I mean, he's the best. It's just like incredible. You know, his grandfather is worshipped as a god.
Yep.
He's worshipped as a king, and his father is like a demigod, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be pretty cool to be Kim Jong Un.
But it's amazing, like, the power that he has, because it translates over here. There are people that are like, the president needs to stop fucking tweeting because he's going to start a war. They're going to nuke us. Or when
they're not.
John McCain called him a crazy fat kid. He was like, yeah, some crazy fat kid saying this. There were people that were going, McCain can't be saying that stuff because they're going to hear that and they're going to respond with force. And it's like,
he
guys,
won't even fucking march into South Korea. Can we fucking stop with this guy
everybody's
already?
afraid of him.
But this is
He's a shit talker. He wants money. He wants deals, so he doesn't continue his nuclear program. He's a fucking little fat. He is a little fat kid who's just screaming for attention.
There was a part of me that thought, because Trump's got a lot of bluster, I mean, that's his thing, it's just like, I'll talk shit to anybody. There was a part of me that thought maybe Trump is the guy to actually, put him in check. Maybe talking big shit is the trick.
Yeah, not being scared.
Yeah.
Well, they were scared of Reagan. I think it was North Korea, Iran, and Russia that he called, like, they said they're the axis of evil.
Yeah.
I think it was those three.
It was George Bush.
No, it was maybe Reagan said something about them being evil. I know they were scared of Reagan because he used the word evil.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, he frightened them because they're like, when somebody considers you evil, they'll try to wipe you out. But when he used the word evil, it freaked them out. Maybe it was Bush who said axis, but Reagan said something.
Because there's no human, like, these are our brothers, these are our fellow people. We got to be. It's like when you're evil, we can afford to just lose them entirely, right?
Right. Yeah, they were scared of him though. Sometimes, what's that?
Enemies of freedom.
Maybe, but he did say evil at one point because they said that he considered them evil and that scared them.
He called them Evil Dead Part 2.
Oh,
that's it.
No, you know what it is? He called them cunts.
Yeah.
Reagan called them cunts. I apologize.
And then they got very upset. When you call me a cunt, that means you can get rid of me.
That's
that means you can wipe the face off there.
Does it make it more difficult? Like, so you're having all these like conversations that one would deem important.
Sure.
About things like Islam and things that actually affect the world. Then does that make it difficult to go back and talk about like horror movies or something that just doesn't matter? Like, you're like, why would we spend time talking about this when we could have experts talk about?
No, I mean, I want the show actually to have some stupid episodes because, like, I really do like Phil Donahue as like a goal point, and Phil would do this thing where one episode would be about police brutality, but the next episode would be about, like, why your man ain't shit.
Right.
I mean, not quite literally, but pretty close. So I want to do some more salacious ones. Like, I want to do an episode on, like, survival stories. Like, if we get a lot more episodes, I want to do some of those more, like, typical daytime talk things, or, like, lies. And I want to do one called about lies and why people lie. So we can get, like, maybe one big liar guest on, but then you get some, like, people who've just been engaged in lies and that they haven't revealed yet, and literally have them reveal their lie on the show to the person they've been lying to. So, like, straight up daytime talk stuff.
So when you're pitching this, do you have to like make it clear to them? Because the way you're talking about it now, this is not a parody, right?
No, it's
like,
not.
It's not. No, you want to do a daytime talk show,
but make it funny. I
Right.
mean, I think that's the sort of the unique part of the show is that it's really trying to do daytime talk with Comedy Central level, like, funniness.
Yeah.
You were in mental institutions growing up? I literally just saw that on the prep sheet. I looked at the prep sheet.
Speaking of daytime Comedy Central level funniness, yeah, I got.
No, I'm sorry to jump in. I just literally noticed that. To me, that's very interesting because you talked about it in your memoirs.
In my book, yeah. I got locked in a mental institution when I was like 15.
Depressed or
13. I was pretty much just like a wayward, out of control. You know those kids, like those white kids on the bus that you want to like punch the shit out of?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was me. So yeah.
Wait, were you wild or were you?
I was a wild kid
you were,
for sure.
okay.
Well, you must have been too.
Yeah, I was a little douche. But I look back, it was suburban melodrama, Notice Me stuff.
Yeah.
Were you fighting or were you just yelling and screaming?
I did a lot of fighting when
You
I was
did?
young. Yeah.
What were you mad about?
Well, my parents are both. I mean, my parents are both deaf. I grew up in Oakland on welfare. My dad was a Hasidic Jew. I would come here and pretend to be a Hasidic Jew for 6 weeks a year in a Yiddish-speaking community with a deaf father. And I, strangely enough, felt a little bit alienated and isolated from every community I was in.
I know a lot of children of deaf Jews, but the fact is that Now
No, the saddest part about being a deaf Jew is you can't hear the change when it falls. It's difficult.
That made me. All right. By the way, your parents met. We have an error on our prep sheet.
Oh.
Okay.
Your parents met. Where did they meet? World Games.
Oh, there was some deaf sport
deaf.
situation happening. To be honest with you, I don't know what it was, but it was
World
some
Games for the Deaf in 1967.
something like. Yeah, that sounds right.
That's not what we have written down.
What
Sam,
do you got?
I actually just found out that both of your parents were deaf, but which is that's an aside because they met at the World Games for the Dead.
That's what it said on our crack prep sheet.
So,
World Games for the Dead.
It's,
That's,
speaking of Evil Dead, it's like that is one of the scariest World Games you could ever attend. The World Games for
I
the
would
Dead.
imagine.
It's really crazy. I mean, they do a lot of different stuff, like the Monster Mash. That's one of the
Oh, I
contests.
love that
yeah.
song. The Graveyard
Who doesn't
Smash.
love
Who didn't
it?
love that as a boy?
Whatever happened to the Transylvanian Twist, by the way?
I don't know. Was that the band or the name of the song?
I don't know. That's a line.
Oh,
from
the song was the Monster.
No,
Oh, I'm so stupid.
Sorry.
You went deep.
No, it's not that you're stupid, Jim. It's that was not funny.
What was the name of the band who did that? The Monster Mash. Oh, Baron Demon and the Vampire. 1963.
I mean, how is that song still coming on every Halloween?
It was a graveyard because no one else has written a monster song.
We
because,
should
yeah,
get on that.
Anybody who would write it now would be like, "That's stupid that you'd waste your time with that." But since it was back then, it's like it's a classic.
Everything was so corny back then.
Right. So how long were you in a mental institution?
I was in there for about 2 weeks. I remember that. Yeah, and I went to rehab a bunch when I was a kid, like 12, 13, 14.
Behavioral or drinking, getting high rehab?
Drinking, getting high rehab.
Okay,
But
so-
it was all a swirl of behavior and drug addiction and insanity.
What finally stopped it?
That's a good question I don't quite have the answer to. I was sort of like skipping along at the bottom, but I was also really young, So it's hard for me in retrospect. I'm 37 now, and I look 27. And
You look great.
Thank you
honestly.
so much,
I
man.
thought you were still under 30. I'm like, why is he married at such a young age? But that explains it.
yeah, because I am getting
You look
older.
good.
Yeah, thank you very much. But I went. I eventually had been in and out of rehab enough times that I realized that I had this realization that if I didn't. When you're young and you're insane and doing drugs and getting crazy, you have this feeling of like invincibility. And for some reason, I had this moment of realization of like, oh, if I don't actually do something now, I'm going to end up one of these losers. I'm going to end up like 37 and living in shared housing and
Right.
one of these tenement places. I just had this full realization of where I was and where I was going, and it's good. A lot of my friends are doing really well, but a lot of them are dead, and a lot of them are in and out of prison and from back then. And so I always think of it like there was a flash moment of opportunity, and for some weird reason, I decided to jump on that
Right,
bus.
you take that moment of clarity, whatever it is, and you go. Are you a good husband? Meaning, in the sense, like, are you argumentative, or are you a guy who go like, it's not worth fighting about, or does those flashes ever come back in a relationship?
Oh, you mean of my old behavior? So I got to tell you, the truth is I don't have any connection to the diseased kid that I was. It's not. It doesn't feel like me. I mean, I was like apoplectic levels of rage. I would, I went to schools with padded cells in the back of them. I went to, rehab 3 times by the time I was 16. I was dropped out of junior high school. I've been arrested more times than I could count. I've been in more fights than I could possibly count. I've lost 99% of them. And all of that was by the time I was 16. So it's like, I don't feel like that's even really a representative of who I am. So no, I can be a different.
That's a different world.
It's a different world. For
but
me.
you don't
It's
feel-
a different world. The spin-off from the Cosby Show.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You don't feel that rage bubble though?
I don't have that anymore.
Like it's just not.
That's
in you.
no, I don't have that.
Did you get
no.
abused as a kid, even physically, or just any adults fucking do anything they shouldn't have done?
No, I mean a couple cops fucked me.
Oh,
but,
cool.
No,
As long as they're both at the same time and both mouth and ass at the same time, it's funny. You feel protected.
I mean honestly, yeah, I was raped by a couple of cops, but I don't feel like that was abuse. I don't know. Does that
Absolutely
make
not.
sense to you?
Hey,
Yeah.
look, it kept you out of jail.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
For your own good.
They did you a favor.
Absolutely.
No, I don't know what happened to me. I mean, I truly think, like like with the hindsight of adulthood, I think really what happened is that I was born into these like split identities. I mean, literally, like my parents were deaf, and I was in all black schools, and then 6 weeks a year I was in Seagate here in New York, and in a totally Hasidic Satmar community, and just like I never was like my empowered in myself. And so when you're young, you
Always
find
a costume, almost like being this
exactly.
or being that. Yeah. So what did you do in an all-black school? That's a tough, for a white kid to go. What did you do to fit in? I mean, did you assimilate like culturally, or did you rebel and fight, or did you try to? What was your way of doing it?
Well, there's basically three things that white people could do in Oakland Public Schools at that time. You could either try to be like invisible, you could become black, or you could just become a separate, like, bad white boy. And we kind of became a mixture of becoming black and bad white boy. I mean, we were sort of like, I remember my fondest memory is when this black girl looked at me and she was like, "That white boy crazy." And I was like, "Thank you so much."
Yeah.
Thank you. I truly do appreciate that.
One of the first times I ever realized it was like racial differences. There was a black girl who I was kind of, we were just talking a little. Maybe we were juniors in high school, or sophomores, and I forget she was talking about something racial, and I had never seen any of it. And I remember going, "Well, yeah, my dad worked hard for what he had." I forget. She's like, "I don't care." It was such a weird moment. We were on the phone. I'm like, all of a sudden we're having an argument, and I'm like, I'm defending this position. And I'm like, why? It didn't even occur to me, but it just felt weird. Like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
It's weird how that stuff you start to realize people don't see things the same way. It's usually with a girl you're trying to fuck. At least for me it was. I did never fuck the girl, by the way.
I think that is true. It's like, I think that if anything, I don't want to go back into the election, but if anything the election did is it removed the illusion layer from everybody thinking we were living in the same reality. We just aren't living in the same reality.
It's almost like you, as a kid, you think that everybody just shares your experience.
Yep.
And then you kind of learn that that's not it. And then when you're an adult, you can fall right back into that thing of like, no, I get the world now, and this is the world for everybody. And maybe it takes something like that to just shake you up and be like, no.
I think you're right. Like, as you get older, when you're a kid, you're learning all this stuff, and then when you get to a certain age, your worldview calcifies. And you can see that on, like, Facebook. I mean, that's one of the things that I learned. I've been learning a lot about in this Internet Changing Your Brain episode. Is one of the main thing that Facebook and these other tech companies need is your eyes on their software at all times. And so they have behavioral psychologists and analysts who work for them to find the right algorithm to make sure that you look at Facebook as much as you possibly can. And the way that they keep you in is not by challenging your worldview. They don't want you to read an article and go, "Oh, that makes me angry. I don't want to see that." So what ends up happening is they give you what they think you want. And then what ends up happening is 6 months, 2 years later, you're scrolling through a reality that you think is a real world because it's all that you see, but it's actually a fake world that's been tailored directly for you.
What a good point. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's true. You get into that's why people go, the left are totally crazy lunatics that want to bring Bolshevik communism to America, and then the left can look at the right. The right is everyone's a Nazi. The whole world are Nazis. It's because all they're ever being given, article-wise or video-wise, is pictures and footage of Nazis and pictures and footage of Bolsheviks. And so
anything that doesn't go hand in hand with that is deemed fake news by both sides. Right. It's bullshit. It's
exactly.
Fake.
I mean,
and because it agrees with them, they're going to click it, and they're going to read it, and it's going to feel good because I'm smart.
Validated.
I knew it.
I knew it.
It'll
validated.
Exactly. I knew it. It'll superimpose your already existing view of the world. And so by the time you get really far into that, there's no getting to you. That's why I want to do the show. It's not to push my political agenda. I'm a leftist, and I'm thrilled to be one. But I also don't think that people that don't agree with me don't have the right to have a conversation with me. So that is the purpose of the show. And it's not just political. It's also mostly just to make people laugh.
Which is funny though, because you know that anybody that knows that you're that you're left leaning, there's already going to be a huge number of people that are like, I'm not going to watch that bullshit.
Fuck
or
this guy.
Even Comedy Central that is obviously left-leaning.
Sure,
It's like, yeah, I'm going to watch a show on Comedy Central.
Right, but the one thing I will say is, like, I have decided not to make this show overtly political. I mean, and I think part of that is because Trump, they're doing a Trump show, and they have the Daily Show, and there's John Oliver, and there's Samantha Bee. It's like, this show's already being made, and it's being made well, and also Trump is the president, so it didn't quite work, right? So I'm not interested in having Donald Trump be my editor-in-chief deciding what stuff we talk about. I want to talk about, like, the stuff that's on the surface, like on the the tectonic plates that the politics live on top of. I want to talk about that stuff.
Sure.
So you were going to be a rabbi?
No, I wasn't.
Oh,
No.
it says here in the thing. Oh, your brother's a rabbi.
My brother is a rabbi.
Most considered being a college professor. Sorry, in Jewish history. Do you know Modi?
Yes, I do know Modi.
Does these. I'm fascinated with these gigs that Modi does because he was going to be a rabbi, and I think.
Modi's a man so Jewish you would know it if he called you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always said, like, you wouldn't know if I called you. If he called you, you'd be like, I'm speaking to a Jew.
No, I got that when he texted me. He does these gigs that Elon, I think Elon Gold can do them too.
Yeah.
Really, really hardcore Jewish gigs, for lack of a better description, where it's like men on one side, women on the other. And he fucking murders. And there's like almost nobody can do these gigs other than Modi. And I'm so fascinated with that world because it's a world that I cannot live in at all. It's a world I couldn't survive in comedically.
Oh, yeah.
I could do
P.S. me
5
neither.
minutes in front of that audience before I started bombing.
Oh, no, me
if
too.
That.
Me too, by the way. And I grew up with them, you know. I mean, there's actually a story about Elon Gold. I mean, I don't know if it's a good story, but it's a story that I think it represents what we were talking about earlier, why it's more important for me to be funny than it is for me to be politically accurate. You know, it's like, I do a lot of jokes making fun of my Hasidic family and making fun of Jews and stuff like that. So Elon came up to me at a party once, and he was like, "Hey, nice to meet you," blah blah blah. And then he just started talking to me as if I was an atheist and I wasn't. I hated Judaism, and it was just like this. He just decided that was true based on me making fun of this thing, which I thought was really interesting because I'm like. I mean, I don't know if I'm an atheist or not, but I'm certainly not I love being Jewish. I'm not eating bread right now because of the Jewish sort of.
I'm not eating for other reasons, but remind me off camera to tell you it's fascinating my diet.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I thought in that moment, like because I've made fun of this thing, there was an assumption made that I reject or hate this thing. I don't hate it. If I didn't make fun of it, I would hate it. I'm more likely to ignore a thing and not make fun of it if it does drive me crazy and I don't want. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that's, to me, the job of the comic is that if I wasn't making fun of my own life and my own religion and my own reality, then what kind of comedian would I even be?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, people say to me all the time, Jim, what's your process? And I'll go, it starts at home. And I point at me. But it is it is the best thing to make fun of is your own life.
But I did think that was an interesting idea that if you make fun of a thing, the assumption would be, and this was even from a comic, a very funny comic, that he just assumed I hated Judaism because I talk so much shit about it. It's like, well, that's our job, is talking shit.
Well, people get very, very crazy. Okay, cool. People get very crazy when it's something that they don't like. Like after Trevor, when he got the Daily Show and all those
Trevor Noah.
Those gigs, all those things came out about his old tweets.
Sure.
And I just couldn't for the life of me understand people's anger at him. And I remember being on Twitter about it because I defended him. And on Twitter, I think Harry Shearer he responded to Penn Jillette, but he had me in his mentions. Oh no, he just didn't get it, or like me, I didn't get it because I defend. And it's like, as a guy who's made a living with humor for your entire adult life, you're fucking all of a sudden now, what he said is wrong, but what you've been doing is just parody and okay. Fucking stop it.
I just love that thanks to social media, Harry Shearer can complain to Penn Jillette about Jim Norton, and you can see it all.
Get on the radio, by the way. But I totally agree.
But it's like, what are you talking about? Like,
I will say, as a Jew, that the Trevor Noah stuff was the most milquetoast, innocuous, I mean, it was just like, it definitely feels like, and this is definitely, I would say both sides do it, but the left does it much worse, that there is a kind of gleeful indulgence in offense and outrage that is totally manufactured and fake.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing, and the cycle happens again and again and again, where somebody gets something big and then some weird, like, blogger will take, a scuba diving costume and dive into their timeline deeper and deeper and deeper until they can find something that they've deemed offensive, bring it into the light of day and go, check this out. But it's like, why does anyone care about what somebody tweeted about 7 years ago, some stupid joke?
I was glad Comedy Central stuck with him.
Yeah,
that's right.
Me too. I thought that was the ultimate example of what you do in a crisis like that.
Yeah, just tell the people to go fuck themselves. It'll be fine.
Don't tell them this is my advice to anybody that's ever embroiled in a social media scandal is go camping. Just leave town. Just turn your fucking computer off and check back in 2 weeks because they'll be mad at somebody else.
O'Reilly, perfect example. I think he's still on vacation.
Yeah, he's on vacation for 2 weeks.
Okay, now we didn't know if that was the company going, you're taking a vacation.
Right.
Because we're thinking of firing you, or is that his crisis management going, look, other stuff has happened. Syria's happened. This happened. Take the break. Shut up. Go away.
If Bill O'Reilly, who is the most hated man by the left, probably in all news media, if he went away for 3 months and came back, no one would remember why he left. That's how short our attention spans are.
But is it like, it's funny how they do hate him, but there's a lot more unreasonable conservatives than O'Reilly. Like, there's a lot more hardcore.
Yeah, but they don't have as big of an audience
That's
as
true.
O'Reilly.
And he's good. I mean, that is a problem, right? When somebody is skilled at what they do, I mean, he's difficult. I think that is part of it. He's rhetorically powerful, and people
also really like to pull somebody down off a big throne.
Knock him off their high horse.
That's actually a great way to phrase that.
Thank you, buddy.
That
Did you make that up?
I did.
That's cool. That's
Not
really
all
cool.
kidding aside. Other people have said that.
Oh, good. Good to give him credit.
Thanks for getting real, man. And that's what my show's all about.
Getting real.
Getting real.
Well, I'm actually doing a podcast. GETTIN''real.
Oh, it's only black guests.
REEL. It's about movies.
Oh, it's movies.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. Clever.
So New York of you, by the way. So
Yeah.
New York. That's why people know you're a New York comic.
Real big appler.
I'm doing one called Jet and Reel, and it's all about the movies you watch on airplanes.
That's great.
Isn't that cool?
And what they leave out.
Yeah, right. And that's offensive.
Yeah, censorship. Fuck that.
I think that people like, bullying has become such a bad thing. But I think that humans have this thing inside them that they have to bully something.
It's fun.
And so this, like, when people start going through Twitter accounts and trying to find ways to get somebody in trouble, that's what it is. Like, you're allowed to bully somebody if they're looked at as morally evil or a villain, or like I catch you doing something that is universally accepted as wrong. Then we can all jump on that thing. So I almost feel like people are waiting to find out, okay, no, bullying is wrong. So who's the bad guy today that we can jump on board and attack him and get this energy out of me?
I mean, I can't quite understand why everybody wants to be pissed off so much. It seems, I mean, literally, if you're going through someone's tweets looking for something problematic, the new show on Comedy Central debuts on Tuesday.
Very, very good.
Thank you so much. Yeah. But what is it that you're actually doing? You're literally looking. Like, she didn't. The people that go through these Twitter accounts, they don't start with the offensive tweet.
Right.
They look for it. So they're literally like, I feel fine. I don't mind this person. Let me see if I can find something that makes me mind this
Let
person.
me see if I can get them.
Right.
That's all it is. I have a desire to get someone. This guy is probably gettable. Let me see if I can.
Also, have you ever noticed that no one's ever gone after, like, the roast battle? You know,
Right.
It's
Can't.
because it's overtly. They're going like, "Oh, we're racist," or we're offensive. You know, that's what we're doing here. So that's not a fun target
Because they can't get you.
Right.
They can't.
They're not an interesting target because what are you going to do? Oh, there was a racist joke on the roast battle last night. It's like, yeah, right. You mean the roast battle? So they'd rather go after somebody that's somebody like me, right? Who's like portraying themselves as this like, oh, I'm a progressive thinker, and then they will grab something and drop that at your feet because they're actually trying to just be offended and destroy people.
But people also want to, they want the credit that successful people get. Like, I want to know that I'm smart too and I'm succeeding at something too. And it's not fair that he's getting right now, like, whether it's they read an article that says, like, oh, this is the new young comic, or here's Trevor Noah, he's going to be hosting The Daily Show. Well, he's not so great. I'm sure he's not so great. He shouldn't be doing this. I am going to add to my depth by being pissed at something. That makes me a person.
Yes, and it's also a feeling of moving the needle a little bit. Like, anytime you get something done, because it feels like, it's like I talk on the radio and I do stand-up and I feel like I don't matter. Somebody who just fucking, like, if you're driving a truck, no, I know that, but I don't like to feel that way. I like to delude myself. But I know people listen when I talk because it's a fucking oral medium. But people who don't have that, like, that's how frustrating.
An oral medium is somebody that can tell what it would be like to suck your dick. Oh, yes. I see. Great
The fact that I said
ejaculation.
oral medium, I could actually hear Colin Quinn going, oof.
He calls in.
Really stupid, an oral medium.
No, I think you're right.
It's frustrating because no one feels like I don't feel like I weigh in. Everyone wants to weigh in and be heard.
Well, the internet has created this reality where everybody feels like not only can they weigh in, but they should weigh in. By the way, they can. It's interesting that some random idiot can tweet at you and you will read it. You know, you will read that tweet and go, If they say, Jim sucks, it'll somehow get to you.
Please, the internet would eat them alive if they said that. Nobody would buy it.
But you know what I mean? Like, why?
Oh, yeah.
Why is some weird person on Twitter able to get to Brad Pitt?
Right.
Like that's what's happened.
It's the great equalizer. Who
Yeah.
the fuck is Brad Pitt? Just a guy with smelly underarms, from what I hear. Who fucks
Is
hot
that
girl?
right?
I've heard that. I hope it's true. I hope it's true.
Go back. Let's get on our research and be like, do you really want to hire an actor whose pits stink?
Sure, he's the most famous actor in Hollywood and the most beautiful man alive, but guess what? His armpits don't smell good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
It's probably a lie. We got to wrap.
That's great.
Moshe Kasher. The show is called Problematic. It premieres tomorrow at 10 o'clock on Comedy Central. And you can get it on cc.com, of course, or the Comedy Central app. And it's Moshe Kasher on Twitter, MosheKasher on Twitter.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see the show.
Yeah, man,
thank
me
you
too.
guys. Thank you for having me on. I really
Of course,
appreciate
anytime. Anytime you're in town. When do you leave?
it. I'm leaving Tuesday night. I'm doing Colbert tomorrow night, and then I'm flying home.
Okay. Well, it was
Yeah.
great seeing you, man.
Nice to
Come
see
back.
you.
Yeah. Anytime you're in town, come back.